So good to have you here. A lot of us have experience in nonprofit and development work, and it's one of the reasons why we wanted to start this forum is to help mission-driven organizations really figure out how they can be using AI more. I'm going to give just a few more minutes for shares. Jessica, Julia, do you want to introduce yourselves? Julia, a returning, so good to see you.
Hey, good to see you
Hi,
too. Hi, everyone.
Julia.
Maria.
Hi,
Nice to see
Jess.
you. Was there a prompt or like were we supposed to answer questions,
No,
Nathaniel?
just want
Or
to say who you are, what organization you work for, just so
oh,
people start having an understanding of all who's here today before we dive in.
yeah. I work for Habitat for Humanity. I lead our education program, so we run like an online course that we're about to design with AI, hopefully. So
Nice.
So good to have you, Julia. We're kind of having a Mozambique reunion, a number of us, Jessica, Julia, Maria, we all worked in development in
great.
Mozambique for years together. So it's so good to see you all. All right, make sure you find the poll. And Vincent, let's go ahead and see those results and just see where people are at in their own use of AI before we dive in today. All right, so let's see where we're at. 12% not at all using AI, 18% less than an hour. So that means, wow, almost 50% of us on this call are using AI less than 2 hours a day. I'm actually kind of impressed by that. Like, not good impressed, we're like huge opportunity impressed. And then some of us are at 3 or 6 hours or more. Favorite tool is Claude. I'm really excited to see that. So Claude and ChatGPT are winning. Copilot, a strong 30% of you are using Copilot. And most people are at intermediate, and then a third is beginner and a third advanced, or about 15% advanced. All right, y'all. Thank you for sharing that. And team, can you make sure that gets screenshotted into our chat so we can come back and look at that? So let's get started. We're going to do some introductions, tell you who we are and who AI Learning Labs is. We want to kind of tell you why we started this forum and really help set the container for what we're going to be doing today and in this series each month. Then I'm going to be going into the data. Maria and I have spent a lot of time over the last few months really looking at the data that's now coming out from large companies. And I'm actually really happy to say the data is proving that humans are necessary and that good human oversight isn't going away anytime soon. So I'm really excited to show you that. Case studies. Maria's going to be talking about some case studies of how big companies and mid-sized companies have thought about AI adoption from a human-centered way that's really keeping their human capital. And then we've been teaching now for almost 2 years across 18 industries, 500 students, and we have some of those students here. Hi, Anne. And I want to tell you what we've learned about what it takes for people to learn AI on an individual level. And to be fully frank, going from individual AI use to team AI use is difficult. So I want to talk about what we're seeing in this space and what it takes to train teams. And then we want to have an open forum where we can discuss together the challenges you're seeing in your organizations and your wins, so we can tell each other why we're doing what we're doing and we can learn from each other. That's one of the most powerful things we hope to get on this forum. That said, you can share, ask questions, engage in dialogue anytime today. This is not meant to just be a one-way presentation. We've probably prepared more slides and more content than we can get through today because we just want to go where you would like the conversation to go. So AI Learning Labs was developed because we really believed that we wanted to amplify human potential and not replace it. And for the last 2 years, we've been asking ourselves, how can we help more people use AI while remaining human? And to be fully frank, there were times where I was like, maybe we're wrong. Maybe what we're teaching people is too slow. Maybe there's people out there just automating humans away, and I just haven't seen it work yet. And I'm really excited to share with you that the studies are showing that no, human augmentation, human oversight, humans using their discernment, their intuition, their zone of genius is the best outputs when working with AI. And so we're going to go through that today. But our goal is to democratize use. I'm in Silicon Valley. That's one of the reasons I got so good at AI. I was with some of the top machine learning and AI experts here in San Francisco. And so we started to ask ourselves, how do we teach people to do what the coders are doing? Because the coders are always about a year or two ahead of what AI can do than most professionals. So, for those that don't know me, I've worked as a consultant for 20 years across development, biotech, pharma, health tech. I have a small business here, not just AI Learning Labs, but a retreat center in Mendocino. And I have to use AI practically in every single one of my roles, from small business strategy and marketing and ops all the way through to executive strategy. And so I've really had the chance to use this personally in everything that I do. Maria, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Nathaniel. A lot of you I know on the phone, as we mentioned, we had some time in Mozambique. I spent my career in management consulting, but specifically in global development, running large transformation projects. A lot of it really focusing on change management and training. Training is a huge part of change management, but also let me. Oh, sorry. Hold on, maybe we can keep everyone on mute while so we can hear discussion otherwise. Thank you. But yeah, running change management, but both of those sectors, consulting and global development, were hit very hard the past couple of years. A lot of my friends and colleagues have been, in transition, looking for new jobs, etc. And, I started feeling behind myself. And so I wanted to say that I'm not just a director at AI Learning Labs, but I'm also a student. And so I don't know if you guys remember that old commercial anyways, I won't go there. But Nathaniel brought to me and to a lot of us on this call a new framework, a new methodology, a way of thinking to really augment our power and augment the output that we can create. And then I started thinking from a consultant background and from putting that hat on, how can we bring this to teams? How can we bring this to mission-driven organizations? Because that is where we feel like a lot of the opportunity lies. And that's where our
And I
network
just
is. And so we're so happy that you guys are here. Thank you.
And I want to give a big shout out to Andrea. This deck was done in Claude Design. And I don't know if you guys are doing Claude Design now, but you can now set up templates for your org. So as you're seeing this, the incredible efficiencies. We would never have been able to put together a deck with this many slides this beautifully in just 1 week's time. This easily would have been a multiple week, if not multiple month process. So this deck in itself is a testament to that. We have a number of services. If you're ever interested in joining our boot camps or our team trainings or our executive trainings, please reach out to us. And what was really important to us when we started AI Learning Labs was a framework for conscious AI use. And we saw that people didn't just need technical skill, they needed a community. And so today I really want to invite you to share what's working in your orgs, the questions you're having. The biggest reason we're starting this and doing this every month is so we can share what's working in our organizations. Because what I'm noticing is most organizations are struggling. AI adoption is really hard. And if anyone thinks it's really, really easy, I would love to hear from you most, because that's not what we're seeing every day. So this forum every month will be happening so that we can share what we're seeing with the data. We're going to be bringing in experts. Yes, it's about AI, but I think we get a chance to reimagine what the workplace looks like, right? I'm a consultant that was working 50 hours a week. I got that work down to 20 hours a week. That gave me 30 hours a week back. I then started AI Learning Labs. So I'm still working 50 to 60 hours a week. But the question now becomes for us as leaders, as we get better at getting more productive, are we actually reimagining what the workplace looks like? Are we creating more room for human flourishing, for collaboration, for team building? And so these are the topics we want to take on as we go through this. And I really mean this. I want to share human to human what it looks like to implement at the team level. And we're going to be bringing in guests. So if you're a topic or thought leader and would like to speak to the community, or people that should be presenting in this, please let us know. We're going to be doing this each month.
Yeah.
All right, one more poll. Now we're going to talk a little bit about where you're at with your organizations and implementation. So with that, team, can we pull up the next poll? All right, and let's see the results. I think we're all going to find that everyone is feeling like there's a lot of opportunities for growth here.
And I know Nathaniel already mentioned at the beginning, but really what we're seeing is a lot of the success lies in keeping or to valuing the subjective judgment of humans in the loop. And this is why I'd love to see, let's see if we can see the results, love to see how we're already engaging, because I think that's one of the things that keeps small businesses sort of, at bay in terms of experimenting more with
All
AI
right,
tools. So Vincent, can you go ahead and launch the results? There you go.
all right. Only 17% of organizations have AI policies, yet they do have tools available. So that's interesting. You might not necessarily have policies, but there are tools in the workplace. How much value has it brought to your team so far? Some solid value, a lot of value, extraordinary value. I would love just a few sprinkles of shares. Who are some of you that are saying a lot or extraordinary value and would like to just tune in and tell us what some of that value has been for your org? Or is that
Also, if you
everyone at
would
AI
share,
Labs?
and you can either pop up or put it in the chat, the tools that you're using, are they formally offered by your organization, or are people just using it on their own?
Any shares before we go forward? Yeah, seeing serious time savings in little bursts here and there from Dan. And Dan, when you say little bursts here and there, what I'm extrapolating is there's certain tasks where you're like, wow, save me a ton of time. And then there's probably other tasks where you're like, this is a rabbit hole where AI is slowing me down because there's too much to do. Yeah. And we're going to talk
Yeah,
about that
thanks,
today and what
Dan.
the data is showing about that. Mia, did you have a share?
That's a great share, Tony. They just got awarded a huge grant using Claude. Congrats.
I just had the opportunity to work with Georgetown on a $3 million grant over 3 years for AI and the Constitution. We wrote the whole grant in 1 week. Usually would have been like a 2 month process. And it was mind blowing what we were able to do. And so there are tasks that it is incredibly good at. Okay, so let's start looking at the data. You might have seen the headlines where this last year, a lot of headlines were saying many companies are investing in AI, but they're not seeing results, right? So 88% of companies are now saying that they're using AI somewhere. Only about 25% are saying they're seeing the returns they expected. And in another study, disputed how the study was done, but even at 95%, those are not good numbers. So let's take a little deeper look at what we can learn from where the failures have happened. One thing that's really interesting to look like is that a lot of the big companies who spent a lot of money were trying to create large systems to replace humans, and it failed. So I'm kind of glad to hear that. Even many of the companies in the Silicon Valley that have been saying, oh, we laid off a ton of people for AI, when you look at what happened, they didn't actually replace humans with AI. Facebook or these large companies like Oracle spent so much money on AI infrastructure that they had to cut the balance sheet, so they cut workers. It was a choice to descale workers to put money into AI data centers. That's not the same thing as actually laying off workforce because AI was doing those jobs. And it can be really kind of confusing. You could be asking yourself, oh my gosh, what are these big companies doing so well with AI that we don't know how to do? And it's not actually that. That's not actually what's happening. It's that they use that as an excuse to cut off their workers. One of the biggest problems that we see is that a lot of companies admit that they went in to invest in AI because they didn't want to have FOMO. Over the last 2 years, everyone needed to put in their press releases, we're doing AI, we have AI, we have AI. And yet they weren't getting the return they expected, primarily because they weren't clear on what they were trying to actually do with AI. They didn't have a clear structure or a clear outcome that they were driving towards. So they were buying expensive systems or trying to make tools available at mass without thinking through the actual implementation. And I saw this same thing in the social media industry in 2010. Any company would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be the first to be on Facebook, even though we would charge $300,000 for a Facebook page and get 60 Facebook followers, right? But in the early days of social media, companies just wanted to be seen as having social media and being on Facebook. What this actually means, though, is when you look deeper, there is value most in what is being called the shadow AI economy. So the same companies that went in and tried to put in big systems, when they actually looked where the AI gains were happening, it was happening in staff using LLMs, usually without permission. So it was people using Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini on their own in their individual task. It wasn't the massive system that the companies were investing in. And if you look at the numbers right now, almost everyone is using shadow AI, even if their company doesn't let them. So if you are a team manager or in charge of a company, I would invite you to, it's so much better to give them the tools and have policies and accept that everyone is using the tools than to have your employees using tools that you don't know how they're using and what's happening for your data privacy. Any questions on some of this data before we move forward? Is any of this new or surprising to you? Because many of us have seen the headlines like AI isn't equaling an investment. And at first I was like, wait, how is that possible? I'm seeing such huge gains on a personal level. I don't understand. And then when I looked at the research, it proved what many of us have experienced on an individual level. The tools are amazing. At an enterprise or automation level, they're not there yet.
Jessica, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's so aligned with what I know from my personal work and also client work. I'm curious if this shadow AI is well documented. Like, what are the risks and real losses to corps and to managers? Or is that still kind of also living in the shadow?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is people don't often report, but it means people are getting a private LLM service like ChatGPT. The issue there is private AI use does not have the same data safeguards as an enterprise plan. And the enterprise plans have gotten much better and giving much more data privacy and security. And it's very easy. Like my small business has 5 seats on Claude, and that's the enterprise level protection. So my small business is getting the same level of data protection as a large vendor. So I'm really excited to see that, right? We make sure that everything is SOC 2 compliant, two-factor authentication. Everywhere our data goes, we're very, very, very careful with. And I work in biotech, so I have to be really careful. And this is a lot of what we do with our clients is just helping them pick their tools and make sure that they have the data privacy that's necessary. So augmentation means a human is sitting at their computer working with AI. So when you're working with Claude or ChatGPT, that's generally augmentation, right? You're augmenting what you would usually do, but AI is helping you write or design or build or analyze. For augmentation, and this was an interesting study, the coders in this study reported feeling 19% faster, but were actually 19% slower. So that was interesting. Not all the studies show that AI is great, right? There's plenty of studies coming out right now that there is slop, that it slows people down, that it's actually undermining business function. They tried to look at when someone in your org is using AI, but they're doing it poorly, and they send out bad documents to their colleagues. If you add up the cost on average of the extra time for that review, that can be $2,000 per person a year. That's not small, right? How many of you have seen that? You've gotten information or a document that you know is AI generated and it looks really good. And then you read a little closer and you're like, this doesn't quite make sense. What are they trying to say? You've just given me 10 pages that looks like a whole commercial strategy. This should have been 2 really good pages that actually had really good human oversight and genius, right? And I see that a lot. And that's what's happening. When the tools first go into the workplace, there's actually a slowdown and an increase in slop. And so we have to watch for that. And I want to name, in order for people to get good, they do have to practice, right? So we do have to create an environment with our orgs where we do understand that things might slow down, quality might go down for a while until it gets better. So I don't want to say that as soon as you get Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini for your org, everyone's going to be a superstar, right? The question is how do we help people do the right tasks and find the right gains within your org? Who is any shares on that? Anyone seen that like LLMs came into their team or workplace and you were actually like, everyone's just creating a bunch of slop that's slowing us down?
Yeah, I can share. We actually
Please.
hired a really expensive consultant to do a curriculum for us to save time. And they came back with some really great stuff, but most of it, but some of the slides were a full-on static AI image. So if there was any little tweak or edit we wanted to make, we had to then completely deconstruct the image and redo it ourselves, and basically took a ton of extra time for my team to fix 1 or 2 or 17 slides. So it just became like, who are we paying to do what? Even though we really loved that they were doing that, it saved us time. We were behind schedule. We got back on schedule. So there were some wins, but also that piece of it was the lesson. We went back to them like, if you're going to use it, great, but make sure the images are editable for us if we need to change something or the data changes or whatever. Like, I don't want hearts on every slide because that's AI, like, flag everywhere. I'm like, why are there hearts everywhere? So basically that was our lesson recently. So
And I will say, so you can take images, give it to Claude, and say, give me back a PowerPoint with every element editable. Because that's happening a lot right now. And I see a lot of that. People don't know how to actually make good PowerPoint slides. They're just creating these images. And you can reverse engineer those images with Claude really, really
Yeah.
well now. Even
But
the last
Nathaniel,
month or two. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I think this also comes right into the idea of the jagged frontier, that it's constantly changing. What AI is good at is also changing from day to day, and it is growing. And so, whereas a year ago, Claude Design isn't what it is today, right? And so, I'm not sure when you had the consultant, but those capabilities are also changing.
And there's this term that started in 2023 called the jagged technological frontier. So what you have here is higher difficulty tasks and lower difficulty tasks. And the basic premise here was that it's not so much if a task is difficult or not difficult. It's about the human's ability to move through that task with AI. And so they thought when they were doing this study that it'd be clear. Some tasks too difficult, some tasks really easy. What they found more and more was it was the human oversight and the human augmentation that made the variable of what was working and what was not. And what's they call the invisible line, right? You can look at something from the outside, meaning you're not the expert on the project, and you read or look at the thing and you go, wow, this is amazing. But the actual experts who actually know what amazing is would actually be able to catch where the errors or the poor work quality were at. Maria, anything you want to add on to that?
Yes, because they're keeping the human in the loop, right? So you start off when you're introducing AI tools to a new workflow, you want to keep discrete sort of tasks while you build the workflow, while you understand whether the output is in fact what it is that you want to. So you have to have clarity in what it is you want the AI tool to help you produce. And then as you can determine that the output is in fact what you want, then you can start letting it do more and sort of grow the tasks that it creates for you. But you need to be in the loop and you need to be in the driver's seat, and that is sort of how you work. You progress your workflow through the different levels of AI involvement.
And when they looked at the areas where it's really good, creativity, analytical, writing, persuasion, and synthesis. And this matches what we see a lot, right? The ability, you know, the ability to take things when humans are in the driver's seat. Let me give you an example. You take a transcript and you give it to AI and you say, summarize it. You'll get a summary. versus you take a transcript to AI and you say, these stakeholders in the call had great ideas. These stakeholders in the calls ignore their ideas. Please prioritize this information, take your cues from the executive director. Please reorganize this in such a way that we have the executive summary versus key tasks versus decisions yet to be made, right? Please watch for areas where information is omitted. Don't make anything up, right? That level of prompting when you're doing a summary is what gets you really, really good summary analysis. And what we're seeing often in the workplace are people just taking transcripts and saying, summarize this for me, but they're not actually taking their human ingenuity and what they tracked that happened during that call and using that in their prompting as they're creating that analysis. But what was really interesting to see is that there was, when people knew how to do their tasks augmented and they were in the driver's seat and they were really good at prompting, they had not only faster results, but higher quality. And what's really interesting is that 43% quality increase for median performers, like the mid-level performers, and 17% quality increase for top performers, meaning even for top performers, it increased, but there was a larger increase for median employees doing better level work. And I'm curious if any of you have seen this. I will say, I think I'm now doing some of my best work with AI. It's not that I'm just doing it and it's done. It's that it used to take me, let's say, 3 days to do a PowerPoint presentation. I can now do that same PowerPoint presentation in about 3 hours. I then spend about another 3 hours making it incredible, even though I could have gotten away with the 3 hour presentation.
Mhm.
And so the work output for me by doing that final mile is so good, but you've got to have that human oversight and push for that final editorial mile. I would say for me, when I do my content, my first drafts are 80 to 90% there. That 10 to 20% that final thing I do where I think of every headline and I look at every word and I rework this paragraph and I adapt the flow and I get rid of some of the AI tells or the AI repetitiveness that is happening. Even me as an advanced prompter, I still need to do that final 10 to 20% of editorial refinement to make things incredible. And I'm curious if that reflects how you've been working. Tony, do you have a share on that?
No, no, I was just raising my hand in agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most of us don't have an AI brain, created that they're using. So you have to give all of that nuance, all of that information that you have to the LLMs in order to produce the outcome that you want.
Now, this is what does concern me. Okay. So the studies I was showing you were kind of like 2023, kind of through 2026. And then they re-looked, some of these same researchers, we went back and re-looked and republished data again in 2025 and 2026 to get more specific. And what they found is that when these consultants challenged an AI output, okay, and they were like, nope, that's not correct. Nope, please check your errors, right? And try to change it. The model escalated its persuasion instead of correcting itself. So what they saw overall is that when you do your first prompt, when an expert is guiding and really putting in their framing, their strategy, their thought process, and AI is following them, the results are much better. When someone without expertise asks AI, how should this be done? AI is overly confident and kind of starts spinning up its own expertise. And so a lot of working with AI in a really good way is getting really good at front loading your expertise, your strategy, your framing. What I usually say before the very first prompt, and this is what we constantly teach our students, the moment you hit the send button for the first time, you've trained the prompt. And most people are putting in a little bit of a prompt and then they're reprompting and reprompting, and they're kind of almost in a tug of war. And the goal is to get that first prompt and as much of your human insight, strategy, and expertise, hopefully pages, paragraphs of information before you hit the send button. Is anyone seeing that personally in their work? I'm just curious. I know we have some of our students here. So Anna and Vanessa, if you want to share anything that you've learned through your process and how it's going, please do.
I feel like since I took the boot camp, I'm noticing more errors in what I'm getting from AI because I am creating better prompts for sure. And I guess I'm also wanted to ask, like, I have so much information in Claude and ChatGPT, and I'm noticing more incorrect information coming back. So how do you fix that? Like, I don't want to take up too much time, but is there a way to fix it, and where would I look to
You're
correct
you're
it?
hitting on a few things. One is I am seeing diminishing quality across my work and people that I consult. As more and more people use these models, even though they say the models are getting better, I am seeing diminishing returns.
Okay.
It's
Me
hard to
too.
prove, but everyone I talk to right now is seeing this. And that's why I love being
Okay.
able to talk to so many people every day. I am having to turn on Claude Opus Max Adaptive Thinking or Fable to get the results I think I was getting on regular Opus 3 to 6 months ago. I cannot prove that, but as I watch reviews, and there's not a really good way to audit these companies, what is becoming clear is that as we're in a race for computational power, as more and more people use these tools, we're actually getting worse and worse results. And they're just branding it like they're giving us more like thing, but they're actually
Mhm.
moving lower and lower the actual model compute you're having access to. And we're going to be
Okay.
in a race for compute. And I'm worried about this, right? Large companies are going to have infinite resources to buy as many tokens as possible. We, as regular companies and small business owners, are going to have to get really good with our tokens and our compute power that we have access to and that we can afford. I
Yeah.
thought when I started training 2 years ago, AI is going to get so good, you're not going to need me. I really thought that. I thought by now anyone could go ask for a PowerPoint and not need to know how to prompt and do a visual guide and do a technical guide, really good copywriting and go through a system and context management. It it's the opposite, um, which I'm seeing that the human-led element is more and more important because AI is so unwieldy, so unpredictable. The models are not doing everything they thought they would do, and context management is a beast.
Mhm.
Like we probably should have a whole
I know. Sorry,
talk
I don't want
about
to.
context. No, no,
Yeah.
no. And it's such a good question. Um, but context management is a beast. And because tokens are becoming so expensive, you can't afford just to like put every one of your employees and let them connect their Google Drives and let it go everywhere. They could blast through your token power and your results aren't good. I'm finding, and that it can't handle hundreds of pages of context very well. I'm having to spoon feed it the right context at the right time, which is why I'm creating strategies and I still copy and paste a lot. Even though I have systems where AI connects, I still copy and paste a lot of my context so that I have full control of what's going in and being processed. Jessica, I see a lot of head nodding. Do you want to share? And Jessica designs data systems and infrastructure. So I'd love to know, Jessica, what you're seeing.
No, same. It's just even though I've got the .md files and all the projects are set up, or I've got collaborators where we've worked on huge libraries of data sets and data dictionaries and defining and exactly what we want the pipelines to act like. It just even today I had to look back at some of the previous things I had done because I was like convinced it was not doing things at the same level. Yeah, so I'm like all of this is like so exactly what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly what's going on, but yeah, it feels more expensive and less efficient to do things.
It kind of reminds me of The Emperor Has No Clothes. We're all being told AI is amazing and I've created $1 million business. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? But guys, I
What?
talk every day to some of the best experts and everyone's having the same problems. I wanted to kind of create this forum kind of for therapy to tell y'all it's hard. We're all figuring out. And what they're selling us and the hype they're saying of what's possible doesn't necessarily meet the reality of what we're all seeing on the ground every day. If anyone wants to prove me wrong, I would love to be wrong. So, by the way, I'm down to be wrong. So, if anyone is like, no, my cloud is amazing and does exactly what I want every time, by all means, please share.
Yeah. All right. We want to talk about a couple case studies. And again, I think the message here is when the humans are kept in not only in the loop in the design, that's where the real success stories are coming, where that human judgment, human discernment, the nuance, the relational skills that humans have are valued. It's where we see where, even some of the larger organizations are seeing their results. And so one of my favorite case studies that I tell anyone who will listen to me about is the IKEA case study. So Inca Group is actually, I didn't realize IKEA is a franchise, but they're the biggest franchise owner. They're the ones that are all over North America and Europe, et cetera. But it's the largest group within the IKEA franchise. So in 2021, they launched a new chatbot for customer service, and it worked brilliantly. It dealt with 3.2 million conversations. It dealt with 47% of the inquiries without human intervention at all. And and they calculated what the operational savings was, it was, over 13 million euros. But what they really stopped to think about is, well, what is the customer service chatbot not, what can it not do? And they saw not that everything was it was all within the interior design business. However, they saw that many of them were people calling in saying, "Hey, IKEA, like, how do I design this? What is the best? What are the best products to use for this type of project that we have?" And that's really where the creative ability of their trained customer service representatives came in. So what they did was they're like, these are, they could have eliminated 8,500 customer service agents if they wanted to. But instead, they took them, they retrained them, they reskilled them to become interior designers. And they also use AI tools to help support that endeavor, right? Because they're not all innate designers, but they did know the culture of IKEA. They knew their products better than anyone, and they parlayed that into a whole new business line. And it wasn't just in 1 year, but it was over the course of, I think, a couple fiscal years, they created a new service offering that reached 1.3 billion euros. And it's poised to grow to 10% of their total revenue, I think, in a couple of years, in about 2028, which is incredible. So it's like they took what was not being handled by AI. And again, this is not about mass layoffs. Instead of laying off 8,500 skilled workers, they decided to use their human genius and creativity and nuanced understanding of the brand to build a whole nother service line. So these are the opportunities when you keep humans in the loop. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Yeah, and I'll just add too, I know most of us are not running IKEA-sized businesses.
Yes.
What you are seeing here, though, is that customer service and messaging tasks are a great thing for AI, and there's a lot of services and tools now for that, right? Or you can train your own Claude. So what I want you taking away is things that operate off of a Q&A or operate off of a database. That is a great place for operational efficiency. And then the question becomes, what do you do when you free up humans? And I think that's a big question here, right? Is like, do you just lay people off because you don't need them? Or can you actually take humans and create more value and differentiated services because they have more freedom and flexibility, right? Even on my team, we're going to be doing more automations. We have an automation specialist coming in next month to talk to you all mid-August. And she creates automated systems for small, medium-sized businesses, and she's partnering with us on our automations. My goal isn't to eliminate team members. Our goal is to free up our team members so they can even do better work on things that I have all these project ideas that we don't have the capacity for right now that I know would drive value for our org if they had the time and energy. And so as a small business owner, that's how we're thinking about human capital is, can we automate more because there's all these cool things that we want to do human to human.
So the counterfactual to that is Klarna, which is, a fintech company, they also launched an AI assistant, customer service assistant, and it did great. It was in, dealing with 2.3 million chats in 1 month. It was responding to 2/3 of all the conversations without human intervention. And it essentially did the workload of 700 full-time agents. Now, they also didn't have mass layoffs, but they stopped. There was regular attrition. They decided to do a hiring freeze because they didn't think they needed humans to deal with their customer service. But again, to some of the things Nathaniel was saying, that, the, people's money is very personal, right? So while there are a lot of opportunities to use chatbots to answer Q&A, there also is a moment where people, and only people, can really discern when someone needs human help, right? What is the loop to get them out of that QA or that AI bot, right, system? So, when you're talking about someone's money and they're frustrated, they need to speak with someone directly. Or if there's fraud, or there are many situations where AI will not provide that relationship building that humans can, or that nuanced discernment that humans can. And so at the end of the day, they decided to reverse their policy and start hiring again because they were losing business. The reputational risk had jumped up because of all of the negative responses that they had to that chatbot. So again, it's just, these two case studies are just to show how important the human component is when you're designing and when you're thinking about how to use AI, and why a lot of them have failed at these larger organizations. And just keeping humans in the loop and in the design thinking.
And so what we're saying overall is, like, again, get AI to automate or do tasks that have easy to do answers, and then have humans in the loop monitoring and overseeing the tasks that are not able to be solved. Any questions on those case studies or insights before we move forward? And I want to say, we've been watching the headlines for the last few years. And first, it would look like, oh, AI is going to be cheaper than humans. Everyone's going to lose their job. Now there's a new thinking that, oh, compute power is so difficult and it's harder than we thought to do what humans do. It might be cheaper to have humans than to have AI systems. So the thing I want you hearing is that as much as the news sensationalizes what they see as the trends, the reality is most orgs are not still getting a return on their investment with AI. The best AI use is the human augmentation, the use of Claude, ChatGPT, and Gemini. And I love seeing this research because it proves that as small and mid-sized business organizations, we actually have a better ability to get value from AI than most large-scale companies that are trying to do huge systems. And we also can implement and adopt and be more agile and run better pilots and successes. And we see that in the teams that we consult in. Like, when people are trained on the basics, like email, I would say the biggest place for time savings right now are email, meeting synthesis, and agendas. That can save the average team member 5 to 10 hours a week when done really, really well. I will admit that then that 10 hours gets down a wormhole of trying to learn new AI. And so I don't know that I'm working less because I'm taking the time I'm saving from the menial labor and I'm reinvesting it in teaching myself other AI skills. And I'm curious if you guys are seeing that as well. I don't love this, but most of us that are using AI a lot, I'm not seeing us actually take a 4-day work week or leave work earlier. I'm seeing us kind of like reinvest that time in learning AI. And I think that's something we have to really watch and figure out how to culturally figure out in our organizations. And it's a topic I want to take on in the future is, are we actually saving time in our orgs, and what are we doing with that time? Does anyone have any examples of where you are saving time and you are working less and you're not overusing your time? in learning AI?
I
Who
mean,
is saving a lot
I
of
can
time on their emails?
answer.
Go,
I,
Vanessa,
I
please. Yes.
well, it's actually more on the PowerPoint side of things. So I'll have to create PowerPoints for like executive leadership summits and things, and that usually does take me time and thought because I'm putting together like a consulting kind of deck, and also I have to be very high level because it's an executive group. But I've been prompting Claude. I think the skills from the workshop that I took with you helped me really like do the right prompting to get it in a format that looks like it's coming from me, right? Like this is something that I would be putting together. I just have, this computational intern doing it for me instead. And so like that has been a huge time saver. Like what would take me hours, maybe even days, is taking me like, 30 minutes. Like it's great.
So, Vanessa, are you working less than 40 hours a week because of all that time you're saving?
I think I probably am. Yes. I think I am.
Good.
I am actually like, yes, I think I am cutting out some of my work time. Yes. But
And I
I
don't want to
actually,
make it sound, go ahead,
yeah.
Vanessa. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say I actually have been spending more time on like so I've been asked to like come up with new revenue streams and business lines and service lines, and now I have more time to think about that. Whereas I spend a lot of my time doing some of this busy work that I didn't have time for that. So now I can actually focus on some of that stuff.
Yeah. And I agree, Vanessa. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not getting any time back. I definitely have more time than I used to, and I'm blown away at how much I get done in a given day. Um,
Yes.
what we've learned is that we've taught 500 professionals over the last year, and we've had to adapt our curriculum. We adapt our curriculum every month because we learn how are people working? What do they need to learn? Well, we learned more and more. It wasn't so much about technical skill. Sure, everyone needs to understand the LLMs and have some technical skill. Well, we have seen over and over that a lot of it is the human-centered skill, clarity of outcome. And I can't say this enough. In all of our trainings, I have to constantly just help humans go, what are you trying to do? Who are you speaking with? What outcome are you driving? And getting really clear on what they're trying to do and then helping them map those projects. Relentless curiosity. Even the head of Claude says they hire for curious, empathetic, creative individuals. If AI can do all the analytics, what you actually need is the ability to make meaning, vision, be creative, and be discerning. And so Claude actually hires on soft skills now more than they're often hiring and looking for the hard skills. Trained intuition. We've seen over and over your ability to have discernment when you're prompting. You can create almost anything with AI in any given moment. Can you actually discern quickly what is good or not? I often talk about this like Marie Kondo, right? If it doesn't spark joy, throw it out. We can now create endless crap with AI. And so a lot of what we've had to teach professionals is how do you actually very quickly assess if it's good or not? How do you dial in your discernment and intuition in what you're creating? I used to, for example, I could create 4 versions in no time, and then I'd save all 4 versions, and then I'd get overwhelmed and I'd walk away from my computer and I didn't want to come back to the project. And I've had to get really good at just cutting out the noise on what's not working and only keeping what sparks joy. So try to use that when you're prompting. Structured thinking in files, we have got to get really structured. As Jessica was just saying on context management, even though the models are getting more powerful, they're not getting better at understanding large amounts of context. And so you have to have a system for content strategy and content saving that actually works with your systems or your projects. And then brain energy management. Now that I can do in 6 hours time what I used to do over the course of 3 days, by the time I get through 6 hours of working with AI, my brain is fried. And so I have to get really good at going for walks, stepping away from my computer. And we're trying to put this in a lot of the orgs that we're working with, that as you bring in AI, please be very aware of how you could be pushing your colleagues to brain fry. And that's the new term being used when people are overusing AI and they're getting exhausted and their brain is literally not able to think clearly. And what we're seeing, if you need humans in the loop and overseeing what AI is doing, you've got to get really good at managing your brain resources. Anyone have any shares on brain fry, and have they had that issue? I mean, I'll be up using AI way too late. And I know you do too. You use it a ton, right? But Andre said yes, right?
Okay.
Where you're using up all your brain capacity. And so we need to be thinking of leaders and team managers about how do we make sure that we're protecting people's brains and bodies and souls, even as we're bringing AI into the workplace. We're
Strong.
running.
I was
Go
just
ahead,
saying,
Maria.
and Desmond, structured thinking in files is my biggest pain point. Absolutely, to get your files in order can take a lot of time, and it's part of that future of work. Like, how do we reorganize ourselves to be able to use these tools in a way that is a lot more powerful? But it takes a lot of startup.
So I want to be conscious of time. We have more slides. There's so much we could share about what we've seen and what we've learned, and I'm happy to go through more of this. I'm just going to kind of like gently go through some of these slides so you can see some things that we've learned about how humans can be in their zone of genius and at the helm when prompting. But I really like to open the floor in our last minutes here about what you're seeing in your workplace, what your pain points or frustrations are, things that are really working as you think about AI adoption. And we're also going to put in the chat a survey. So if you could tell us if this was valuable to you today, we're going to ask you a few questions. We also ask if you want to put in ideas or topics you would like us to cover in the future. We're going to really be looking for experts that fit the topics that we're interested in. And we'd love you to want to come back. So take that survey. Let us know if this was beneficial today, if you had feedback for how we can improve this, if you're an expert in the space and you want to present in a future forum, please let us know. But the link is here in the chat. And please open that right now. And while that is there, I just want to open the floor for any shares, questions, ideas, what resonates.
I'll go. Kind of taking up a level up in terms of training organizations and teams, I guess. That's something I'm really curious about. What are the best practices? How are we gonna keep up ourselves and then bring everyone along? Does everyone need to know everything? How much does who need to learn on your team? So I think for me, I'm trying to be an early adopter so I can bring my team along, but also the organizations behind the curve. So I'm really curious, yeah, for another time for us to kind of like, what are the best practices? I'm gonna date myself, but during, the dot-com boom, everyone was getting a website, right? And they were just flying up, and some were good and some were awful, and you could see like the difference. But is everyone gonna need to know how to do this? Like, I didn't get into, dot-coms because I was like, I'm not a computer nerd, but now seventh graders can code like a website, right? So, what's the future going to be, and what will we need to have on our teams to be successful, and all that sort of higher level sort of existential stuff.
It's a great question, Julian. One thing I can share is we're working with a client right now, and we've created two training tracks. Training track one is what are the basics that everyone can do better? The emails, the meeting, the synthesis, and everyone has access to Outlook, and they want everyone using Outlook as good as possible. Now, sorry, not Outlook. I keep saying
Pilot.
Outlook.
Yeah.
Copilot. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Microsoft Copilot. Okay.
Same
That
difference.
said, for those of you using Copilot like me, as much as it's gotten better, I still think it's not great, right? And I think Claude is way better. So they're opening up Claude for what we call the champions. To have access to Claude, they have to go through a deeper training so that the company feels like that investment and the token cost is worth it. And we do trainings like PowerPoint is very different than doing data in Excel, is very different than doing strategy documents, right? Or HTML vibe coding. So that's what we've been trying to do is we don't want to make it compulsory. Many of our clients don't want to force everyone to use AI for everything. So how do we first bring AI in and help everyone have like that 5 to 10 hour time savings a week on the tasks we know are really able to when people become, we call it mid-level prompters, moderate prompters. And then we try to find the champions that want to go deeper and want to invest the time it takes to become an advanced prompter. And those of you that have gone through the bootcamp, as you know, becoming a very advanced prompter just opens up More possibilities and unknowns and lots to learn, right? Thank you, Julia, for your share.
I have a quick question if we have time
Yeah, please.
about how successful people are being with I guess Claude calls it skills. Other ones have different names for it, but basically preloading context. And what I've been using it for is kind of a funny example, but I play role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and I wanted to try to create a agent that would be sort of a co-game master with me, but it needs to know the rules really well and stick to just the rules. So I've sort of gotten to the point where I'm creating skills in Claude and giving it just the rules that I want it to follow and not have it be searching the web. So I'm curious from other people how well that strategy is working for them.
I would love anyone else using skills, please come off mute. Andre, I'd love to know how well is it working? How good is the skill at adhering to the rules the way it's supposed to be every time?
Yeah, I think so far I feel like it's better than not doing it, but it's still not 100% perfect is what I've encountered. And it's frustrating because it's a lot of work to set up the skills and then you feel like, I don't know, I'm still not really trusting this. Like, was it worth doing all this work to like, get to 99% instead of, 94% or whatever it was before?
I'm not going to answer yet, Dan. I want to know what you think before I go.
Who,
You were
me?
coming off mute. Did you? Yeah, did you
Oh
have a
yeah.
share on skills?
Yeah, I do. And Andre, I love your example. I don't know how many people know this, but Flickr started as a photo sharing site just for one game, one online game. And then they were like, oh, we could use people could use this for other photos. And sadly, Flickr's now dead. But I do have a skill success story in that we do video production. And one of the most creative, most difficult, and most nuanced things we do is edit videos, telling stories, right? So synthesizing multiple interviews and producing, a tight 5 minute video from like 3, 4 hours of interviews. I used Claude to create a skill using a plugin that is an extension for Final Cut Pro to hmm, to take the paper script that I had written and assemble that in Final Cut. And that's a process that could take anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 hours potentially, depending on the length, for somebody to go soundbite by soundbite and assemble that. But it was an iterative process that ended up with a pretty tight skill to do it. And now that it's just ready to go and it can save us time anytime we're assembling something like that.
Yeah, Dan, thank you for that share. I'm going to stay on. If any, I would actually love to answer that more, Andre. So, but we're at time, so I'm going to bring this to a close. And then anyone that would like to stay on for additional discussion and Q&A, I'm happy to share more insights and have more group discussion. But with that, we have upcoming events next August 12th. We're bringing in Jen Saragos, who's an automation expert and does automations for mid-sized companies. And her and I are going to have a debate: automation versus augmentation. We're going to really talk through where should you be thinking about automation for your organizations and for what types of tasks versus augmentation and giving your employees the right tools to augment what they're doing. And then we're going to be doing data for development orgs, how you take large amounts of data or data systems that you have, how it can plug into AI, how you can make data more available within your organizations. It's going to be through a development lens, but applicable to anyone that has large private data sets that they want AI working with, and they want that information to be accurate, because that is very possible when you train your models correctly on your own data. And please follow us on LinkedIn and our channels. We would love to be connected with you all. And we will be posting on LinkedIn and tagging those that have shared their LinkedIns with us. So would love to help invite more people and have more thought leaders in this space. So again, thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please find the link in the chat to the survey today, just so we know how we did and what you want to talk about next. And you can also let us know if you want to know more about our AI Learning Lab services for team trainings. All right, with that, thank you all, and I hope to see you in August for our next forum.